A question my friends ask me all the time, especially recently, is how I'm always on one trip or another, and how I have this seemingly unlimited travel budget. Now, when I just respond with, I use my credit card points, I tend to get some pretty bewildered looks. And I don't blame them. In fact, if you responded to me with that about 2 years ago, you'd have gotten the exact same look from me. That's because for most people, credit cards are just pieces of plastic that you use to get some rewards to redeem for a gift card, or use some cash back to pay off your bill at the end of the month. But there's this whole world of rewards that you can get access to by just climbing the metaphorical credit card ladder. My name's Alion and welcome back to the CreditVerse channel. We talk about all things credit cards and personal finance, and today we're going to be climbing the credit card ladder. Starting all the way from the first rung where you don't even need a credit score to get started, all the way up to the very top where there's some really cool cards with some crazy perks. Before we dive in head first, let's talk about how we're going to split up the tiers. First off, there's exclusivity, which is simply what credit score or income do you generally need to get one of these cards. Now naturally, as you go higher up the ladder, cards are going to get much harder to get. That being said, don't worry if you're just a student or you're entering the workforce just now, because there's a lot of cards that get all these amazing perks we're going to talk about later that don't really need a high level of income to get at all. Next, we'll take a look at all the benefits, perks, and rewards you can get with each card. Now, even though we're not as lucky as our southern neighbors, there's still a lot of really cool perks and benefits you can get with holding a lot of Canadian credit cards. Now, this can be things like lounge access, hotel status, and even discounts at some of your favorite stores. But wait till the very end where we're going to talk about some really cool things on the highest level of cards. Lastly, of course, there is the annual fee. While you see some exceptions here or there, generally cards are catered towards a certain subset of consumers, so the annual fee becomes a pretty solid way to split up the cards. Starting off with secured credit cards, these are credit products given to people who have either no credit history or a pretty challenging past, where you pay a deposit to the bank to account for the risk they're taking, and when you close the account in good standing, you're going to get this deposit back. Now, these cards don't really have many cool perks or benefits. In fact, many of them don't really earn rewards, or if they do, they're under that 1% threshold that you earn on most other base cards. That being said, this is really just a place to build your credit score back up, and the idea is that once you do that, and the bank deems you more trustworthy, you move on to some of their better products that have more perks and benefits. Neo and Capital One both offer pretty solid offerings here, though there isn't really going to be a huge gap no matter what you choose, and while there are some annual fees associated with these cards, the Neo one is free, and if you're at this point, you might just want to get the free card, quickly build your score back up, or take as long as it takes, and then move on to the next tier. Now, if you're a student, you can generally just skip level 1 and move on directly to level 2. Level 2 is effectively the home of the 1% no-fee cashback card. Generally, these cards are given to those who have a couple of expenses and don't really want to pay an annual fee and are just getting started. This is also the first time you're going to start seeing welcome offers on cards. Sometimes there's a bonus from $25 to $100, and this is generally free money. There may be some cases where you need to spend a certain amount on the card, for example like $1,000 over 3 months, but that usually isn't a problem for most people. Over the past few years, this space is getting more and more competitive, especially with the arrival of the RBC Ion card last year, which really shook things up as it had a pretty solid earn rate and no annual fee, which was a perfect match for anyone looking for a card in this segment. Some other notable options here are the Amex Simply Cash and Amex Green, which I think are pretty good starting options. Similar to the secured cards from level 1, you really just want to get one of these cards, build up your credit score a little bit, and then move on to one of the other cards when you want to get access to some more travel rewards or benefits. In fact, this is exactly what I did. I got a RBC Cashback MasterCard in this level 2, and then I immediately skipped to the level 4 cards later on, about 3 or 4 months after getting my first card, because I started traveling a lot more than I anticipated. Level 3 is where you really start to earn your way to some free travel. This is effectively the space where the lifestyle and entry-level travel cards exist, and it's a really good place to get your feet wet in the award travel game. Now, cards like the TD Aeroplan Visa Platinum, the RBC Ion Plus, or the RBC Avion Visa Platinum are really mainstays at this level, and they kind of are exactly what you're looking for. With bonuses from a few hundred to $750, you can really quickly start to get some free travel out of these cards, as the annual fees aren't too high either. Most of these annual fees fall within the $50 to $120 range, and while there are some exceptions like the Amex Cobalt, which you could argue is a lifestyle card which carries an annual fee of about $150, you can quickly get that back just with the earn rates on that card. There's also generally no minimum income requirement for these cards, which is really good for students who are just going to spend a little bit more than level 2 and want to travel a little bit more moving forward. You'll also need a pretty decent credit score to get one of these cards, which shouldn't be too big of a deal if you've been responsible through level 1 and 2. You should be able to move on from those cards in about 3 to 6 months. In fact, that's exactly what I did, as I mentioned previously. In the way of perks and benefits, there isn't too much to note here, but co-branded cards like those offered by Air Canada or WestJet might give you preferred pricing on some flights or give you a companion voucher if you spend a certain amount every year. You'll also start to see travel insurance become common at this level, but it's going to be a little bit more limited compared to the next levels. Just as an example, the Amex Cobalt has flight delay and car rental insurance, but won't have trip cancellation or interruption insurance, both of which are pretty valuable. Rung number 4, or the core tier, is where you're going to find most Visa Infinite or World Elite MasterCard products. Now, even though this is a video about traveling, there are some really good cashback options, and pretty much every single bank has a strong contender in this segment. We do tend to find a little bit better value from the travel cards in this segment, and pretty much every card we tell people to get started with if they want to start traveling is probably part of this segment. There's also some pretty substantial welcome bonuses. They can often eclipse $1,000 and maybe hit that $1,500 mark if you apply at the right time. The perks and benefits also start to get leveled up a little bit here. In some cases, you're going to get lounge passes so you can relax after going through security or just grab a quick bite before getting on your plane. Co-branded cards also start to get some pretty serious perks here. You're probably going to get free baggage or maybe a very discounted companion voucher, which is going to be pretty helpful if you want to really start traveling. You also get some pretty strong travel insurance at this level, even from the cashback cards, which is nice because pretty much nothing is excluded here and it all comes as standard. Certain cards also get some pretty special perks here. For example, the Scotia Passport Visa Infinite and the HSBC World Elite MasterCard get no foreign transaction fees, which is nice because you save 2.5% when you're traveling. Additionally, you might see like a Nexus credit on a card or a travel credit from cards like the Amex Gold. Annual fees are also a little bit higher this level, but not by that much. You're really looking at the average of about $140, with certain cards being about $250, but then you're going to get a travel credit to give you a $150 effective annual fee. Now, this is also where the income requirements start up. You generally need $60,000 of personal income or $100,000 of household income to get any Visa Infinite card, or $80,000 of personal income and $150,000 of household income to get a World Elite MasterCard. That being said, there are also some cards at this level that don't require any income requirement. For example, any Amex card, no matter what tier, has no income requirement whatsoever. And in fact, that's the card I got because 2 years ago, I didn't have the $60,000 or $80,000 of personal income I'd need to get a Visa Infinite or World Elite MasterCard. Suffice to say, this is probably the sweet spot for most people. You get pretty strong welcome bonuses with relatively easy accessibility, as well as pretty reasonable annual fees, making these cards excellent additions to almost anybody's wallet. While editing this video, we realized we didn't really like how levels 5 and 6 came out, but we still want to get a video out to you guys this week, so we decided to split them into part 1 and 2. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, and to make sure you don't miss out on part 2, be sure to subscribe. With that, we'll see you next week.